my name is Barry Anderson. I'm a director, cinematographer, and author, and I'm here again for another new webinar here for Pro Video Coalition. And today, it's a fun one. It's how to light in 15 minutes or less. I'm sure a lot of you can identify with clients that want you to work fast, cheap, and out of control, and I wanted to address that today. And what we're going to do is we're not going to talk about cameras or support system for that. We're just talking about the various lighting gear, and I'm going to walk you through two different scenarios of how you can basically prep your gear in advance, make sure you have the right gear in order to be able to move fast, and then how to use some of the techniques to actually light those. So I'm going to first and foremost just walk you through some of the things that I have with on a given job. So everything that I want to bring with out of my car, or if I'm flying, I want it to fit on one small cart that you can buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. There's too many carts to get into, but I have kind of like a makeshift mag liner. But I want to be able to get my camera case, my tripod, my stands, my lights, and any modifiers. And if I am doing audio myself, I want all that in one trip. I want to take it out of my car, get it into the building, and if there's an elevator, great. If I, God forbid, am in a location where there's stairs, I want to have the least amount of things to carry. So I want to keep my footprint really small. This is very important when we're talking about shooting in 15 minutes or less, because the more gear, the bigger, the bulkier, the heavier, all that adds up into time. So I like to say, I did a project a couple years ago with puppeteers, and I thought it was really funny because they would talk about the weight of the puppet. And you'd pick up the puppet, and it was really, it basically felt like there was no weight. And so they were talking about differences in ounces, because when you have your hand over your head all day operating a puppet, it makes a difference. And I found that to be true with our gear. Even though you can have a bigger light, sometimes you don't need one. So let me walk you through what I have here. First and foremost, everybody knows you gotta have stands. And I usually have a really tiny stand. This is a good one for small light things. It also travels well in my suitcase. I have a more traditional aluminum stand that's a little bit bigger with a little bit broader of a base to put things like either your boom mic with a boom mate and or a flags and whatnot. I have a gel roll here. You always want to have some gobo heads so that you can put some modifiers on. This is one of my all-time favorite tools. I'll show you this when we actually set up. This will actually hold a reflector or a bead board. I always want to have C47s, aka our little clothespins. That will use it when I use my gels and sometimes to clamp other things. I bring with me a road rag kit. If you haven't seen these before, you can either get 2 or 4 units in here. You come with the actual frame that breaks down. You can either have a black, you can have scrims, or you can actually have a silk. So I've already put together my silk for this presentation so that you can see us when we're moving. The other thing that you want to have is you make sure that you want to have extension cords and a power strip. And ideally, I love to have either extension cords that have a natural 3 breakout, or you can actually buy the 3 breakouts. And this is the one I like. You can get the actual strip ones where they're all together. I like it when they're on the axis, because then if I have different blocks that come with the different lighting packages and stuff, I never run into a space issue with these. And then a tool that, when we're talking about 15 minutes or less, that's critical to me is just a cheap dimmer from Lowe's or Home Depot. If I have a practical in my frame, as opposed to trying to gel and or change out light bulbs, I can plug this in and just dial it into what I want. So I want to have these with me as well. The other thing that I want to have with me is a light set. So today I'm going to be showing the Stella Pro lights. These are killer lights that I use all the time. What I love about them is they're actually internal battery powered. So one of the things we're talking about today is battery powered lights and how efficient they are, that you're going to see when we're setting this up. But what I love is that it's a small form factor that is very quick, easy, portable to use, but I don't have to connect via power, but I also don't need to connect an extra battery and have an extra case for batteries and whatnot. The other light that I use all the time is a Vector from Roscoe. This, as you can see, has a traditional V-mount battery, and you can just basically plug this in, turn it on, and you're ready to go in no time, fully bicolor. What I love about this is that if you actually are using a V-mount battery, we've used this both as work lights and as regular lights for the scene, but you basically can let this run more or less all day and it won't ever run out of power. So it's one of those things that frees me up if you forget to unplug in between the interviews that you're doing. you're pretty well set to go. So this is kind of the toolkit that I'm working with. And like I said, I have a couple bags. I've taken them out so you can actually see what's in here. But I basically have 2 bags for my stands. The gel roll goes separately. This comes in a case with all my modifiers that I can sub in if I want lights. I can get 5 lights plus my stands in this little 1510 Pelican case. And then if I do have a beadboard or modifier, that's separate. If I fly into a location, I could stop by a hardware store and buy it. Otherwise, I can just throw it in the back of my car. And basically, all this can fit in about 3 to 4 cases and or bags. And I can get this into a place, and I'm working very quick. So this is what we're starting with. So let's go ahead and say we're going to use this in an environment to actually light an interview. So let's go ahead and start by taking a look here around the room. So I want to show you here the actual room that we have. This is a living room. It's a little bit oversized, but you can see here on this far wall, we have a bank of windows, which we can actually use as a light source. I think you can see here on the video, but right now it's very overcast. So we have a nice, soft, even light. That what I love about this, if I'm lighting an interview, is the chances of the outside ambient light changing a lot isn't very good. So that means that if I actually want to play a window in the scene, then I can. Oftentimes if people use windows to light their subject and it's actually in the scene throughout an interview, you're going to see those light levels go up or down. So I think today would be fine if we wanted to use that. If we actually take a look over here, we have a fireplace and kind of a mantle. And if you can kind of continue looking over, you kind of get into your traditional entertainment center, picture on the wall, light. And then if you look over farther to the left, you look down and you get the depth of the rest of the room. So this is kind of where we're tasked with setting up an actual interview. So I'm going to start by saying what's great is because of the light that we have today, this can actually act as our key light. So if we're trying to light in 15 minutes or less, what we want to do is pick where we're placing the talent. And wherever we're placing the talent, we want everything in the room, the depth, the light, kind of where plugins are, workability. How do we make that work for us? So in this case, I'm going to use this bank of windows as our key light. So I'm actually going to grab a chair that's just off screen, because I always want to try to have talent standing up a little bit higher than a lot of lower chairs that you'll find in rooms. So what I want to do is, we know the light's coming in here, we want it as a key light. I'm going to move a few of my things out of the way. And I feel right about here, I think this is going to be great. If you can see here in the background, we can go ahead and hopefully have some of the elements and colors from up here and maybe a little bit of the wall being broken up behind. But we should be able to set up and actually get a pretty interesting look going that way. So I'm going to take my camera and get it set up, then we'll call in talent here to step into place. Let me move this over first and get a shot framed up. Get the camera fired up. I'm using the 70 to 200 so we can kind of compress the background, and I might have to come up a little bit with my camera, but I don't know if you guys can see it all. We'll go ahead and record this as well so we can cut back and forth to it. But right here, this is kind of the startings of our setup. So since we have the key light coming in through the window over here, I'm going to go ahead and frame the talent to be sitting a little bit more left, looking into our key light. So I'm going to have Sarah come on in. So I'm going to have the interviewer, if it's myself or someone else, standing just to the right of the camera. Now the way she's looking, she's opening up to where our key light's coming in. And what I'm liking is, if you see the framing, we're actually getting a little bit of this practical, so I actually can get a little light into the scene. And if we're lighting in 15 minutes or less, anytime we can use that to help us out, that's fantastic. So this is something that we don't have to bring in or set up ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and focus here on Sarah, get this kind of framed up, and you can already see that we're getting pretty close. So we're shooting at 24 frames, set my shutter, I'm at a 2.8. I'm liking what's happening here. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of fill. So what I'm going to grab first and foremost, so I'm going to grab a stand with a gobo head. I'm going to take my quacker clamp here. I drop this into place, and then I'm just going to take some of the light that's coming in through the windows, and I'm going to reflect this back on the fill side of her face, And I think it's going to look nice. I don't want too much, so I have silver and white in this one. I'm going to put the white facing her. Get this slide in here. And so if you take a look on the actual thing, you can kind of see it hitting her face as I kind of bring it around there. So I'm going to take a look and see if this is balancing the way I want it to. So one of the things I want to pay attention to is anytime we're talking fast, cheap, out of control, there's always things you have to pay attention to. Sometimes the form factor. This is a smaller traveler stand, so our base actually isn't very big. So when we have something that has a lot of weight to it, or we put it as an off arm, they can be very tipsy. So this might be one of the times you want to switch to a different stand, or you just want to go ahead and drop this a little bit so the weight's not hanging out quite so much. But it's just something that, even though we're asked to move very quickly, it's our job still to make sure that we're safe, the talent's safe, and we don't break our equipment or anybody else's stuff there inside. So I'm going to go over now. I'm going to take our dimmer. I'm going to turn on this. And because I've never shot in here before, we don't know what bulb is in here, but we're going to now guess it's always a compact fluorescent. So I'm going to, before I do anything, I'm going to go take a look at the monitor, and I'm going to find out whether or not. Okay, so that's pretty hot. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to actually pull the light a little bit away from the wall so I'm not getting it, and I'm going to try to dim it down. And not knowing what the compact fluorescent will do in here, pull that away a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in down here. Plug this back into the wall. And I'm going to go ahead and squeeze this down. And don't know if you can hear it, but there's a little bit of a hum. And you're going to start seeing a flicker there, which is no good. So if you do not have a bulb that you can swap in, you may not be able to do this. This is one of the reasons I like to travel with light bulbs, but in this case I don't. But let me do, I'm going to stand by because I'm going to be right back. I'm going to run around and see if there's a bulb in one of the other fixtures and bring it in. So I'll be right back. So I did find a bulb. It's still hot, so I just have a Kleenex that I'm putting around it. But I'm going to go ahead and unscrew the compact fluorescent. I'm going to sub it in with a traditional incandescent bulb. So, can't remember if so that's all the way up. So this one gets pretty dim. So let's go see if that is close. Take a look there, and I need a little bit more output. So again, we go back, raise this up, and I'm guessing right about there. I want to notice the warmth in the light without it being too much. I like where it's hitting on the wall, so I'm digging what's happening here. If you had more control, what I might do is actually take and light the candles, get a little bit behind her head. Don't think we need to. And then the only last thing that we can play with is I'm going to take one other light, and this light has a Fresnel lens on it, but we're going to go ahead and actually just kiss the back corner of her hair. And my guess is, turn this all the way down. I want to catch just the corner of her hair. And I really know this is powerful, so I want to just have it just be a little bit. And I'm going to also take in my kit, I have just little scraps of silk. If it's going to be too much, I can either set up a whole another stand, which takes time, but in this case I just throw it over the top, and I take a look there, and I'm getting just a kiss. I'm going to actually move this just a little bit more. I'm hitting just a little bit too much on this side of her face. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually quadruple up my diffusion here. Keep that. I'm going to move it right into here. So if I take it off, as I come back, I'm thinking that's pretty good there, I think. So we go ahead, Sarah, can you take a look right here? And what you're actually seeing on the background, this is a good thing to point out too, one of the key elements in lighting a room is when I go into the room, I normally turn off all the lights. And if you take a look over here at the ceiling, there is no actual lights. So I've actually put a light for this webinar so you can actually see me back here. But I want you to take a look here what happens when I kill this ambient light, which I currently have aimed just at the ceiling so that the overall light comes up. But if I just go ahead and unplug this, you're going to notice it gets much darker. So what I want you to pay attention to here from the camera, looking at Sarah, is what does that actually change? See how much it drops off? It's a lot more moody, and I was picking up a lot of bounce off the card that was coming from over there. So in some ways, the background looks pretty nice the way it is here right now. So you can actually decide if you want to go ahead and get the light, to change the light and how it spills back here on the wall, or if you want to keep that ambient light up. But for our webinar, I'm going to keep it on, in which case I'm just going to go ahead and keep it on for the actual frame as well. And I think this actually looks pretty good. So even though I'm talking and running around and kind of jumping back and forth, I'd say we've taken, let's see, 2 light fixtures, 1 stand with a modifier, and the 1 practical light. And in a matter of less than 10 minutes here, we have a lit scene. So what's great about this is that it's quick, and I think we get pretty decent results, but not everybody's in a location where you have windows. Maybe it's a cloudy and sunny day where it's coming back and forth. You can't control the key light. So let's actually take a look at one other setup. So instead of actually using this bank of light as our key light, I'm going to go ahead and kill our back edge light here, and we're just going to move to a different position in the room. So let's take a look here. If we're going to go ahead and say that these are no longer in play, I want to play the room. So every time I enter a room, I want to try to figure out how I can get more depth. So in this case, I can get depth by looking over. We got color in the painting, we have the electronics, but it's kind of a dead space in the walls. So I think what I want to do is use going down the hallway over here. So let's go ahead and take a look at where we're going to set her up now. So I'm actually taking a look. If we look over this way, you're going to see that we have a big whitish wall behind her, which normally I don't like because it doesn't give us, anything pretty to look at. But I do want to take advantage a little bit of the hallway and the fact that we have some depth there. I'm getting a little bit of color off the couch, but again, all the light that's kind of coming off right now, let me go ahead and turn on and off our ambient light for what we're shooting the webinar with, since we're in the same room, and you're going to notice it's pretty dark. So I'm going to turn this back on while we get it set, but I will turn it off when we get to the point of actually looking at our final lighting. So in this case, I'm going to definitely need a key light. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of our battery-powered Stella Pros. I'm going to go ahead and take this, and because she's going to be taking a look here to the left of camera, I'm going to go ahead and set my key light over here so that she's going to be looking into the key light. I'm going to grab one more stand. And then I'm going to grab the slightly bigger stand since I'm going to go ahead and set a flag. So I have a little bit bigger base on that. Grab one of my gobo heads. Go ahead and drop that on. Take my diffusion here. Now a lot of you might be saying, well, I have a light that comes pre-diffused, or I have a softbox, and those are fine to use. The reason that softboxes sometimes in these tight situations are less than ideal for me is because of the fact that I don't know where I'm going to be shooting. The softbox, whatever size you have, has a predetermined distance between the flag and the light. And in some cases, I don't have a lot of room, and so I have to move this closer, or sometimes I need more output from my light, and even though I'd like to have more of a diffused look, this way it gives me full flexibility to kind of make it do what I want. So in this case, I'm going to turn this on, get my flag in close to begin with, turn this on, move this up, and I'm going to start by just turning it all the way up. So we got our max out there. We're going to take a look, and clearly it's very nuclear, so we don't like that. So let's go ahead. I can either stop it down, and you can kind of see the light on her face, or in this case, we want to kind of let the background drop off, so we're going to stay wide open. I'm going to drop my ISO down to, I would say probably about 320. And I'm going to drop down from 5,000 lumens maybe to 3,000. And what I want you to pay attention to on the back wall here is sometimes when you have this, you got to make sure that you're not getting any kind of spill, or you don't get the full shadow to hit the entire frame. So right now we're getting a nice pretty look key light there. We've taken a lot of the light directly off the background, but it's not particularly attractive right now. So just for this, I'm gonna go ahead and kill our backlight, because you can kind of see on her left cheek we're getting a highlight that wouldn't be there necessarily if we weren't shooting the webinar at the same time. So let's take a look here. So right now it's a very flat image. So I'm going to go ahead and take our diffused light that we had here before, and I'm actually going to let that play again. But this time I think I'm going to have it be a little bit less diffused. And I'm going to increase that a little bit. Let's see what that does over here. So now we're getting kind of a nice kind of grease there on the kind of key back quarter edge. So now this is where it gets fun. Now we get to play a little bit. So as I said, in my normal kit here, I usually have 5 lights. So I'm going to set up, let's see, we have 2 running right now. So I'm going to set up 2 more quick, and I'm going to show you a couple cool things to get this again 15 minutes or less. We've dropped in about 3-4 minutes. We got the first one set up. We'll drop in 2 more and we'll be well under our 15 minutes of time. But again, what is going to start to be part of the key of doing this is A, knowing your gear and what you have, and B, kind of having your all-star piece of equipment where you can just go back to time and time again when you're ready to go. So in this case, what I want to do is take, and we'll see what we have to play with here, but I'm going to take out my gel roll. And I'm going to try, just for fun, I'm going to try like a theatrical blue. So I'm going to basically take this, turn this on. So I'm going to see, the theatrical blue is going to take a lot out. We have that up right now, so let's take a look at what that looks like. And it actually doesn't look too bad, but it's a fairly flat light the way it's angling right now. So I'm going to play with the idea, if I come closer and have it be a little bit more of an angle, we're actually going to have kind of a hot spot behind her head, and we'll have kind of a gradation on either side. You can see what happened here is now, instead of just hitting the wall, we're actually having the light hit and get kind of some sheen off the back right here. So it changes the entire look. And so this is partly where your art comes in. Do you prefer this look, or do you prefer it if we're actually coming straight off the back and just kind of have a halo behind her head, but we're keeping it off kind of the far back? And again, I'm not here to say that one is 100% better than the other. I think in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it off the back for now. But this is where it's fun, because we have 1, 2, 3 fixtures, but we also have right here a practical. Let's turn this on. What does that do? Does this warm this up? Are we seeing any of the practical in the frame? We take a look here, and we're getting kind of a warm hit, which I'm kind of digging over there. And now, because we have all the depth going all the way back, I can turn on, there's a practical here in the hallway, but because we stole the light bulb before, this happens to be one we stole it from, we'll grab that in a moment. You have lights here in the hallway, so if we just turn on an overhead light, you're going to get kind of a warm yellow-orange tone way in the back, but since it's a shallower depth of field, we're not seeing a ton there. Let's see if that door opens. We're seeing a hit here on the top of the door. So that's pretty close to the actual fixture. I'm going to open that all the way here, and let's see what we end up seeing on the monitor. So that overhead light in relation to everything else we have going on isn't very much. There is one other main light here in this first hallway that we can turn on as well. So now we're getting a little bit of an ambient boost in here. So I always start by turning on practicals before I move to lights, just because it's the fastest way to go. So in taking a look at this, when I turn the practical in the hallway, I just feel like it looks way too orange yellow and is a giant rectangle. So I'm going to take my light here. I'm going to kill the overhead in here because it's too warm and orange. So we're going to go ahead and kill this light. Then I'm going to take this light just off screen, and just like you saw with the light in the other room, we're going to just go ahead and bring up the ambient. So I'm going to turn on the light, aim it at the white ceiling, and now we're going to bring up this ambient the way we were before, but the color temperature is going to match and I have a little bit more control. So I'm going to find a happy balance where hopefully it won't be nuclear, but it will in fact still be appealing for the frame. So as we're seeing right now, we're seeing too much of kind of the hit over there. So I'm just going to reposition. So we're catching this here, so I'm actually going to move it off that back wall and get it to come from here. I'm going to boost it a little bit. But now we shouldn't see any gradation. All the stuff and all the powering is going on over here, but it should even out and be pretty nice in the frame. And I would say that I think I brought it up a little bit too much. So I'm going to bring it down a notch or two on the light. And then the last thing I'm going to do is you have these far rooms back here. I'm going to actually just open up the blinds, and we're going to get some blue light coming in back here. And let's see how this ends up looking. I like the blue that's coming in the back room, but I think now that in between room is a little bit too much still, so I'm going to bring this down to its lowest setting. So right there. And again, I think we're pretty good. So again, there's other ways that we could be lighting her. We could choose a different color behind her head there. We could actually come in and I'll just hand hold this really quick. If you wanted to, you had more time, you can go ahead and actually take and have a little bit of a rim on the back of her head here. And just catch a little taste to kind of pull out the highlights in her hair. But my guess is we might be a little bit hot in this, so I'd have to set it and look. But just gives you some other options you can do here on short order. For this shot here, we have a key light running through diffusion. We have kind of an edge 3/4 grease through diffusion. We have another light that's basically acting as a negative diffusion. We're lighting up the wall, which is separating her head. If you wanted to have a fourth fixture, you could have an actual hair light. And then our fourth actual working fixture is in the hallway to bring up the ambient light in the middle room. Otherwise, we're talking about windows, blinds, overhead lights, practicals, and basically we're able to set this up in short order. And I think what makes this all critical is where do you place the talent, what are you working with, which piece of equipment did you have, and one of the things I want to point out, because for me, kind of what's been changing how I've been lighting and how I'm able to work this fast is the fact that I have things like battery powered lights, because as you can see here, I don't have cables running. So if I want to move something, I can just run to the other room. I have one here powering my monitor because I was out of batteries for that, but that's the only cable that I have connected on this entire setup. So the fact that I can go from spot to spot, just pick up my camera, move, pick up my lights, move, pick up my diffuser and move and not be tied in, this is how I can get dialed in. So you might say, well, how long do these batteries run if they're internal to the camera? Well, it depends based on how much output you're using on them. But let's say you're going to run anywhere from 45 minutes to maybe 2 hours tops on this, and you're saying, well, I got to shoot all day. What's great is in less than 15 minutes we set up. So now we got sign off from the client, or you shot your first interview and you got more downtime. Now you can actually go ahead and plug them all in, which would be charging them and not burning your battery power. But it's just that ability to get set up, see what you want. Maybe your client looks at this one and looks at the other one and picks one of the two, and you're basically ready to go. So I think that freedom to keep it small, portable, battery powered with high output, that to me is all the difference in the world. And I think that's what is one of the key parts of my kit to help me shoot, in 15 minutes or less. So if you have any questions, let me know. You got my email, barry@barryanderson.com. Remember, it's 2 S's. You can follow me on Instagram or follow me on Facebook. But if you have any questions, let me know. We got a couple of these left before we wrap out the year, but I'm starting to take requests for what we should be doing for 2018 and what are the topics that most interest you. So if you have questions, please feel free to email either me or Pro Video Coalition. In the meantime, I want to wish you best of luck, and if you guys do a setup that you're proud of, please do send it along. I love seeing the work that you guys do too. So thank you very much and have a great week.